My name is Tibor, and welcome to the session. If you have done webinars before, you know how the system is going to function. You have two choices. One choice is obviously if you are looking at and watching things on a iPad, iPhone, or any kind of laptop or desktop, and that's your Zoom feed. The Zoom feed, the best result we had in the past and we have now is if you have it connected to an Ethernet connection. If you have it connected to Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi should be stable, should be fast enough. So this webinar is going to talk about how the new interface, when it was introduced in 2019-6, did change and how it's different. I will go through my system so you understand what my capabilities are. And it is important for me to explain that my version is a specific one, 2028. That means that it's 2020 August. That's how they are labeling it now. So instead of using version 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on they had in the past, now they are using this versioning. And that makes sense to a lot of us. So if I open up, and if you open up your Media Composer, you should expect that it's going to give you the 2020. In this case, it's going to give me the 2020. So if I have nothing open in this case, I will have it shut down. I will also shut down my Acrobat so you don't have strain on your system. Zoom by definition is a standalone environment, so it doesn't need to have the operating system running. Just keep that in mind. With that, let's open up Media Composer. When the Media Composer is opened, it will identify itself and it will tell you what the version and the flavor is. The flavor I have is called Ultimate. And Ultimate has four elements that generally we really like a lot. One of them is the Symphony, then the newscutter if you're connected to a server, but the phrase find and the script sync are very powerful one. I'm going to talk about the phrase find in about a minute just to explain to you why that is beneficial. So if you have the ultimate, the demo is going to be talking to you more. If you just have the Media Composer free or just the Media Composer, you may not have all the tools that are activated in my scenario. So with that, the first thing that you are familiar with, if you never dealt with Media Composer, the first thing is that you need to identify what are you going to be working with. So you might have some projects that are already in the system, and the projects may be external, internal, or here it is. It says, shows you the location. So it tells you that my stuff is inside the users shared Avid Media Composer shared Avid project. That's where my projects are. I have some preset projects that I built in, and just for quickly explaining where they are physically, I'm gonna quit out of here and escape on the Mac. So here is where my stuff lives. When I say my stuff, I'm talking about my project. Users, shared, Avid Media Composer, and inside is where my shared Avid projects live. That's where my projects are. And from there, I'm activating the Rock Climber. I also have an external drive, guys, that is containing, including, storing, holding my Avid Space Media files. And there I have two folders. One is the one is the one. This is on a root level. And as an Avid user, you know that you have to have that on a root level. If you don't have one, when you start capturing, digitizing, ingesting, either of those terms are interchangeable, you will have the computer create one for you. With that, let's go back again. Activate Media Composer. It identifies itself. My recommendation is, as a Avid user in the past, you know that you have to have, or you should have, all your eco elements connected. Eco elements would be hard drives, control surfaces, anything that is controllable or interacting with the Media Composer. Therefore, Media Composer application, like the software, is opened up last, and you can see on the bottom it runs certain things. It's finding things, reloads the plugs in, and so on. So that first step is clearly making sure that all your material is connected, material being cards that are reading the video from cameras or any kind of other stuff. I pick a project that is an existing project, and you see this new version in 2019 they introduced it. Now you can actually see more information. You can see the name of the project, you can see what is the project type, the frame rate, the raster size. So this is much more practical in terms of identifying what's going on. before you bring it in. I will bring in the project that I called Rock Climber. If you start a brand new project, you know that you can click on the project drop down, and the flavors that you have available are broken down into PAL, the 24, 25, and 30, NTSC, the National Television Standards Committee. Then you have the high definition 128720, which is the progressive flavor. Then you have the full raster size of high definition, and there's a whole bunch of varieties in terms of frame rates, 24 drop, also known as 23976, and so on. Then you go into the Ultra HD. You can obviously use the 2K, but I haven't seen people using it lately. But I've seen people using the Ultra HD. The difference between the high definition and the Ultra HD, you know by now, it is quadruple. Everything is, so if you have a 1920 1080, you double the height, double the width, you come up with 3840, 2160. Let's just check one of those. There we go, 3840 and 2160. And the difference between the Ultra HD and the 4K is not significant, but important enough that you address it. 4K gives you a number of flavors, gives you the 3996 pixels going across, gives you the 4096, which is what I've seen a lot of people use. And then you have the 4000 by 17 and the 4000 by 31. The 4096 by 3112 is pretty much what the film people, when they had the 35 millimeter and they wanted to go onto digital, they used that. So the aspect ratio on the 40, 96, 31, 12 is 4 by 3. If you pick one of those, you can actually save it and name it. In my case, you can also have it a customize. Customize, obviously, click on it, and then you define what is the pixel number. So you can do 66, 66, and you can do 22, 22. And you can save that. And that's going to be really silly because you can have banners and boxes and whatever else you want. But I am not going that way. I'm going to look for some project that was pre-cut for us. And it goes back to the project. Also, the user profile you're familiar with. If you haven't worked with Avid, then this is something new for you. A user setting is how you organize your keyboard, how you organize your export, import settings, how you organize your ecosystem, and that can be taken with you separately, totally separate from a project, totally separate from everything. In my case, I will call it webinar, start a brand new one. When you start a brand new one, you expect that it's going to be a default. Let me sneeze first. So we'll call it, let's say, Friday, and not a Friday, Friday. And you can call it January 15. And that's your user profile. You can copy, paste it, and move it. But when I start it, it's a default, which means that every keyboard and everything is default. And I'm going to go to an existing project, which is Rock Climber. You open it up, either left double clicking on it or opening it up. So either of those choices. The computer now sends out a message, says, hey, everything that I need to have in there should be connected, and it opens up the project. So this is how the new interface looks like. If you worked with it, you are home. If you haven't worked with it, this is something new, and I'll explain it to you. The first thing that you notice is that it's now magnetic. Everything is connected. Things are not separate. Oh, man. What did they do? Well, they did something different. And you'll notice that things are pretty much logistically in terms of locations, the same places. The upper left-hand corner is where your project information is. Let's close these bins. And you will notice that if you go and activate your left side of this box, that turns on and off. So that's how you activate an environment. And you can switch between a bins view and effects palette view. You also notice that the composer window now has a source green line and a record blue line. Source is green, blue is record. That's cool. You also notice that the timeline is, again, as I said, connected. So how do you separate things? We're going to get into that just in about a minute, but I need to show you the 4 default work areas. That's the edit. Then you have the color. Then you have the effects. And then you have the audio. You notice that they are in the upper right side, and they are icons. Icons represent those workspaces. You can obviously still use your friend from the past, which was the Windows drop down, and in the workspaces, you can activate those guys if you want to. And that is just as good as clicking on the icons. The cool thing about the icons is they are recognizable, and for some people who are coming to us, brand new editors, it is very practical. So far, I presume that you are able to follow, and this hopefully makes sense to you guys. Here's how a project looks like when it's opened. The project that I have is containing already a pre-cut sequence bin, a empty one where I can put things, or in this case, I made duplicates and copies and everything. But here's my raw footage. The raw footage presumes that this was ingested or digitized, or we call it properly imported. So here are the traditional views that you're familiar with. If you click on the rock climber, and in that case, I'm just click on the rock climber, opens up, and it shows me that it is now the only environment I'm looking at. And that's a problem because I don't see a way how to switch back and forth other than physically click on the sequences, click on the rock climber, the tabs. I'm changing the tabs. Okay. Another way of doing that is double click on the bin icon, double click on the bin icon, double click. Can I see three of them at the same time? Sure. Here's how the system functions. Oh, by the way, the visuals, if you were used to an older system, the bin was a icon that had the two strips of film hanging. That was the traditional before 2019-6. In 2019-6, we said that, well, we moved along and we have these cabinet drawers. If you want to right click and close it, not close the project, but close the bin, click on it, close the selected. Now you can see it's a drawer. It's a drawer like in a cabinet. So you pull it out, and when it's pulled out, actually the icon replicates that. So that's how you know that your bin is open. So it's a drawer bin, if you want to call it. So if you have more than one of them open, let me show you what happens if you have more than one of them open. They all pile up in this box, upper left-hand corner next to the bin, and they are kind of looking for your attention. And as I said, tab is the one that you would use to switch between them. But here's the way to make your life more complex, not complicated, complex, by deactivating or delinking those elements, meaning that I want to have a floating bin. How? Clicking on the X next to the name of the bin, dragging it out. Now I deactivated it. Oh, okay. Can I have another one? Sure. That's it. So now my real estate is obviously not messier, but much more complicated to manage. But it is available. So my point is that this tool that I have now is now allowing me to see not one, but one, two, and three bins at the same time. Can I have all of that in the box where my cursor is hovering? Yes, this is how the answer to you guys is. This is something that I have really, really liked when I saw the first time. And the premise is that I have three bins fighting for my attention in that bin box. So how do I put them next to each other as opposed to bringing it up? It's called splitting vertically or splitting horizontally. The way it works is you grab one of them and you drag it either to the bottom and it turns white, or drag it to the left, turns white, or drag it to the right. If I drag it to the bottom, I'm splitting that window horizontally. So I split it horizontally. If I want to split the window that is in the upper area, so I have three of them, I can grab and say, hey, I'm going to split it not horizontally but vertically. So now I can split things together. This in real estate management is something I haven't seen before. This is the coolest thing that they introduced. So this is an easy way of managing stuff and seeing things. This is also a place where you can copy paste things, so you don't have to open them individually. Cool way of doing that. If you have a pre-existing story, and I do have a pre-existing story, pre-cut story, it is called the Rock Climber Promo. I did duplicate it with a Control D. You know how to do that. When I say duplicating it, you can select some environment. In this case, it is the bin, and it is a sequence. Command D, Control D on the Windows, and it duplicates it by definition. And in the edit drop down, I duplicate. So the keyboard shortcut reveals itself. It shows it to you. So the question is, how does one start to work on project? This is a pre-cut project and the media was brought in. And I know that the icon, if I left double click on these clips, they show up in the source monitor. You as an editor, if you worked on AVID, you know that there is three different ways of looking at stuff. One is left double click, put it into source monitor, and you can look at things. Another option is that if you hold down Option Alt on a Windows, double click, you have a floating source monitor. And the floating source monitor benefit is very clear. You can have multiple of these clips opened up at one time, but they are fighting for your attention. So real estate management is going to be an issue. Generally, two monitors are really used when you do this kind of work. Okay, closing them clearly. And the third way of manipulating stuff, and this is where things become interesting. I'm going to tear this down, the rock climber, tear it down. If you want to look at things in frame view, remember that in the earlier version, I believe it was in the bottom. Right now, it's in the upper right-hand corner. You can look at things in text view. You can look at things in frame view, and you can look at things in script view. If you look at things in frame view, you notice that you can organize your elements any way you want it. You can drag them, mess it up, and you can do storyboards. When I say storyboards, I'm referring to the following. Watch this, please. Grab shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. The hierarchy is left to right, you know that. And if I drag these in the timeline, I have a story. Let me demonstrate it quickly. There we go. I have a story put together. I drag and drop. So those 4 shots are part of a story. Let me get rid of that sequence because I don't want to get there yet. Safety, you guys know that if you want to delete something in Avid, you don't have to worry about deleting and it says, oh my God, something happened. Control D is maybe too long ago. I can't retrieve that. Avid wants to make sure that you are a broadcaster. And if you want to make something change, you are very seriously committed. Therefore, you select that sequence is to be deleted. And okay, now it gets deleted. So let's look at one more time the concept of looking at pictures. You know that if your material is disorganized, like mine is, and they're all over the place, these frames, Control L, Command L increases the picture size of them, increases them. Control K, Command K makes them smaller. We know that. That's nothing new. The only difference is that, first of all, if I right-click inside the area, the fill window gonna fills the window. And this is something where but new things come in. Watch this. If I fill the window and I have the window of the bin width, so it is longer on the top and shorter on the side. But if I change mine and I use my box and say, hey, I am showing you maybe a portion of it, I need to use the slider to see the rest of it. So for this, Avid says, well, if you organize your viewing area in the bin and not all your stuff is visible, how can you make it visible? Fill the window. But if you do, again, something else and you know that there's more stuff, well, I don't know how the system is set up. Is there more stuff? In the past, you didn't. Now you will. This tool that I'm adding is on the upper right side corner of a bin, and the drop down says, show me a bin map. The bin map tells me that I have more stuff, but it is below. You see that little white wireframe thing? And if you zoom in, obviously, very, very deeply, you can say, okay, where do you want to go? Which section do you want to see? So it moves you around. So it tells you, because of the limitation, the space limitation, this tool is, to me, very practical. I've seen it in other applications, and I'm glad that Avid got this in. So if I have a window and it's not opened altogether, like in this case, the only way I'm knowing, or the only way I'm aware of that there is more clips, is either inside that bin, make the pictures smaller, which is one way of doing that, and make sure that I drag it out so I see that there is no more, or say hello to this tool that in the drop down is labeled bin map. If I turn it off, it's not going to show. If I turn it on, generally, if you work with a lot of footage, it is a cool one to work with. Now comes the question, how do you import? How do you link? I'm going to link some material because I have some stuff to work with. So if I open up a new bin, there are ways of doing that. The easiest way is if you right-click inside the bin environment in the new bin is a keyboard shortcut, Command and Control N on the Windows. You should be also able to, in the file drop-down, open up a new bin. So I'm going to open up a new bin. I'm going to have that new bin called For Your Webinar. 12:20. I have 20 more minutes. I need to move along. If I open that bin, which is For Your Webinar, I would like to have stuff put into it. This is how the new system works since 2019-6. Right-click inside, and the input is now broken down into different flavors. The easiest flavor is the source browser. The source browser replaces the link, which replaced the AMA. So the AMA was an Avid Media Access where you could actually connect to stuff. So the source browser should be the place where you can actually browse and find what to connect. If I do have footage, and I think I do have footage, the source browser says, okay, where is it? So I'm browsing it. I have a crucial drive that contains, and it has a whole bunch of stuff on it. And I believe here it is, Media Kit, Media Composer, Avid Media Files, okay, Jacuzzi QuickTime. And on the Jacuzzi QuickTime, I have two folders, a 006 and I have a 007. Each of these files that I am seeing are now being linked. And you notice that it is not using the QuickTime, it is using the universal media connection link, okay? So it is using a different plugin. When I'm talking about plugins, I am telling you that in the drop down, if you are looking for a AMA, I believe it was AMA plugins, you would have to go onto the internet, and the internet would tell you, well, you just bought a new camera and you shot with that camera. And the material that you shot with that camera is not recognized by the Avid. So now you need to go to the camera manufacturer website, in this case, the Canon, the Glue, the Drastic, the Panasonic, and all that stuff, and you can download it. Like, for example, if you have a Red, go into the download and it tells you what are the versions, and it gives you that. And it tells you what is the version at particular time in this scenario. Therefore, if you're looking to have plugins, meaning that the camera original is not recognized by the application, in this case, the Avid, you would have to go into the Avid link, open up the Avid plugins, AMA plugins, and download them. Now we made the link in 007. And again, as we have said, you can look at things in text view and look at things in frame view. So now in frame view, I noticed that looking through the Avid eyes, I can actually access that footage. I can link it. That's my guarantee that when I bring it in, it's linkable. Command L, so the slider makes them bigger. And you can actually, through the Avid, now connecting the media, hit the space bar, and you should be able to play things. Point is that you are able to check your footage. So you can check your footage inside the 006, 007. How do you bring it in? Generally, when you bring stuff in, I recommend that you make it in text view, select all of them, and you tell the computer that you are linking. So this is how the linking works. And there are two different flavors. One flavor is that you link it into the bin that you named, or you can create a new bin based on the name of the folder. So you can actually create a folder 007. And then when you do that and you link it, watch what happens. Link 2, 3, done. Where is it? It's already in the 007. There we go. They're all linked. You notice that the icon is a different icon. It has a little chain next to it. The easiest way to actually do all this is much, much more simpler. Watch this. I'm going to open up a new bin. I'm going to call it 006. And in the 006, I have nothing. Double click, shows up nothing. Minimizing the environment. Going into the area where you think let's call it the camera card. And in my case, I have it on a external drive, solid state drive, and that solid state drive has all the material that I have labeled and named MC101. There we go. Media, there we go. And Jacuzzi 006. So these two clips that are QuickTime movies, I hold down Option and just drag them into the bin. That's my easiest way of linking it. If you have Alt on the Windows, that's the way to go about that. The difference between dragging and dragging from the Option is digitizing. So if you click in the right window and say, hey, input, import, instead of source browsing and importing means that you will be picking a clip. So same place, same way I just did it. Go back into your Media Composer material, Jacuzzi and 06, and you pick one or the other file. The question is, do I know what is the way of digitizing it? Not at this point. So you have to go into your options. In the options, you define that you're going to digitize it with a specific compression. And then let's say DNX HD would be the one that I've been using if you're working on a Windows machines. Some people use ProRes, your choice. When you see the X next to the HQ, that means it's 10-bit video. So if you do DNX HD, open it, that will digitize it. The question is, where will it go? Where will it create brand new media? Oh, okay. So that's where you define it. But this was too many steps. I do remember that there was a settings option in an earlier version. The settings right now are broken down into preferences as well as settings. So you can actually open up either the settings, the same window shows up, or you can open up the preferences, same window shows up. You notice now that your settings are broken down into project settings, user settings, and site settings. The project setting is the one that I need to gravitate to if I need to set up a default import compression. So I don't have to go and set it up each time. I can just click on a clip, drag it in, and it will bring it in a specific way. How? That is called media creation. It was also in the early version in the settings, but it was in a one big setting, and it said, project settings, user settings, site settings. Now they split it up so it's easier to manage and understand. Media creation, open it up. And the media creation, when I import, it looks like that I had it set up for DNX HDHQ. If I change it to 1-to-1 or 1-to-1 progressive 10-bit or any combination of that, that should be kicking in. So just for fun, let's do Apple ProRes 422 high quality. I will send it to a specific drive. I'll pick it up and I'm sending it to, let's say, that crucial drive. And when I'm okay, now it will be digitized a specific way. So it's now digitizing it. It's creating new media. It's creating it in a specific location. And we'll talk about how you find things. So when it is bringing it in, it is digitized. It takes time, obviously, and it uses up space. So please watch it. The icon looks different. The icon of the 638 looks connected, and the 632 looks different. I'm going to color them differently. I'm going to have one of them red. One of them is going to be green, RG. So I'm asking the computer, and this is where you can find out where your stuff is. So on occasion, if you have multiple drives and you say, where is my stuff? Where did I put it? I don't know. It's all over the place. Generally, if you find a clip that is connected and you right click on it, there should be an option where you have the reveal. So it reveals itself and tells you, I am inside the Black Crucial, inside a folder 101 media and jacuzzi, and that's where I'm living. That's the original. That's the linked one. What about the one that is imported? Right click on the same. Well, it's not the same name because it has the MOV extension added to it. If I go reveal that one, that should be found in where? In one of those AVID space media files. And generally, when you bring stuff in, it is in a folder called 1. There's about 5,000 files limit inside any of those before they spill over. I have a whole bunch of stuff in the 101. That's where things are. So that is a guarantee, and that is a clear indication that that was digitized as opposed to the green link. Do they look different? Let's open up one of them. Option. That's the one that is the link, and the other one right side is going to be. They don't necessarily look different. Sometimes if you have some color issues, it might be a different thing. Why? Let me show you that quickly. So opening up your settings, when you have the media creation, remember the media creation tells you that you're going to be doing some importing. And in this scenario, the question I'm asking is when you are importing, okay, that's the location. Is there any more specific ways of importing it? Yes. Go back to the bin where your material was. In my case, it's going to be on that drive that I brought it in from. This tool that I am now exposing you is something that you had done in the past. So if I go and want to import from here, importing would mean that I am going back into the bin, right click, import. So now the import is bypassing all this searching. If I find where the footage is, the footage is again inside here, my 101 in the 6. If I click on it, before I determine it, if I don't want to use a default, on the bottom left hand, there is an options button. And the options button comes up and it asks me, when you import it, do you want to stretch out the image so it fits the current format? Do you want to have it resize it? Do you want to leave it alone? Generally, you either size it or you resize it. But this is where the big game is. Do you want to have the color of whatever the camera original was treat as legal. So the people who were capturing it, they already set the black and white balances, the black and white levels. Or you want to have the computer do it for you. So whatever you had, the computer is going to crush it down to whatever the 7.5 IRE and 100, or in bit would be 16 to 35. So that is going to be the only difference. If you don't have it set up, it will do whatever the default is. If you physically set it, now when you import it, the image will be responding to those color things, because color is a big game now. So with that, let's get out of it. So we know how to link, we know how to import. Keyboard shortcuts obviously are going to be helpful, or drag and drop. So let's go into quickly a sequence that is pre-cut. The pre-cut sequence has a copy, and it is going to be the promo. The promo I already put a title on, and the title right now, if you are Avid users and you use this title tool, there is no more title tool. There is no more such a thing as title tool. Okay, so how do you create titles? Oh man, I'm glad you asked. To create titles now, title is a effect, and it is living inside the effect palette, living inside as I am doing it right now in the title. It's an effect. So you physically drag it onto a layer. It's an effect. And then it comes in, and then you can work with it, and you can type in things. Hello, class. And you can move things around using the animation tools and a whole bunch of stuff. But I am just exposing to you that this is now a new game altogether. And as an effect, it has different things. So if you double click on it, in the past, you were able to show and separate the opaque and the transparent. Not anymore. It already presumes that you're cutting things out. So when you look at it, solo, you can see that the black area is already cut out, but you cannot separate it. It's already built in. It's very sophisticated, and it's cool, and it's working, and it's fine, and use it. If not, use your Photoshop or anything else. I'm going to get rid of the effect, this here, and show you a couple of things that in the new system we have. And this is going to be really cool. If I am interested in making things orange, remember in the earlier versions, the time code was on the bottom. So if the time code is in the middle of your stack of clips, the easy way to do that, move it, is holding down Option, Control on the Windows, and put it back where it needs to be. Increasing the track height, you know how to do that. Control A selects all the tracks. Control L, I'm talking about now Windows, on the Mac is Command. Increasing the track height, decreasing the track height. And if you are looking for things that are really, really practical, and this is what I like very much about this, the practicality. I am looking at a clip, and I want to find out information about the clip. Please observe this. If you have the rock climber clips showing up and I click on it, I have two different ways of looking at things. I'm looking at things in a picture. Okay, that's fine, but it's too small. Make it bigger. If I want to find out information, I say, well, it's RO2, and what else? Control I, or Command I, gives me metadata information. And that metadata right now is much more organized. It used to be a teardown window. Now it's much more detailed. But this detail to me is kind of a problem, because it's always floating somewhere. It's in my way. It's in places. So for this reason, I'm introducing to a different way of tabbing things. Remember, we tab things by using the grab down, and we split it. So now we split it horizontally, vertically. That was inside an environment. Say hello to this new friend of yours. In the tools drop down, the new friend is called Inspector Tool. The Inspector Tool is actually the metadata box. The Inspector Tool is the metadata. I generally see people put it in the bottom right-hand corner of the timeline. How? The same way that you dragged the bin next to the X, grab that metadata next to the X and drag it, drag it, drag it in the bottom, and drag it all the way to the right side and let it go. So now the bottom right side of your timeline is metadata. Organizing obviously would be. And the cool thing is that you don't have to open up individually each clip. You can just click inside and say, hey, here are my clips. Park on it. It gives me all the metadata information. Oh, that's a cool thing. Would I like to save it? Sure, by all means. Guys, this is how you create brand new. Look at the right side of my environment. Creating brand new workspaces, option 1. In the workspaces, you call it new workspace, and then you save it. That's one option. The other option is, I don't know if you see it, but on the bottom right-hand corner of this environment, there's like a downward pointing delta triangle. Open it up, and it says new workspace. And I'll call it Happy Bunch. Get my spelling right. And when that is done, now I'm able to switch between different ways of moving things around. Okay. Here's one thing that I just need to throw at you because my time is running out. I have something that I generally love a lot, and that presumes that I have a spoken section. When I say spoken section, I'm referring to picture stuff that is, I'm going to organize my material in terms of this interview. So the interview that I have, the guy's talking, and we know that when the person is talking,
as you get to
you can hear the interview. You know that in the Media Composer, you do not see the waveform when it's in the source. In order you to see it, you have to either bring it into the timeline or click on the source, and on the bottom left hand, there is a toggle where you can actually see the waveform. And the waveform can be activated opening up your friend, the track control panel. You can see the waveform. You know that the waveform track is adjustable by height and thickness, if you want to call it. But here is the cool thing, and this is a keyboard shortcut that we like a lot. If you use Command Option L, you decrease or increase, in this case, increase or decrease the density. It will not affect the sound. It will not affect the loudness. It will still be the same volume level, but for you to see easier what the inclines and declines are, it will be Control Alt K or L. L makes it bigger, smaller. Command Option on the Mac. And if that is a place I can say, hey, he's saying something. Listen to the word.
When I get to the rock.
When I get to the rock.
When I get to the rock.
So now the computer is going to be tested, and you and I are going to ask the computer, can you find a word where the guy says rock? And that's going to say the source monitor is going to be kicked out, so we don't come up with voodoo, so it's not in there. So the first thing I'm looking for, make sure that everything is saved. The computer is going to be asked by that drop down, find. And what am I finding? Well, I'm finding the word rock. Okay, so type in rock, R-O-C-K. And I'm using the phrase find. So if you never dealt with this, I'm introducing it to you. If you dealt with this, you know how it works. The phrase find asks you in any column, in any bin in the project, let's find out where does he say rock. And it takes some time for the computer to analyze things. And when it's done with the analysis, it's going to give you a whole variety of things using the percentage as the hit score. So the closest to where you can hear rock is 93. What do you mean? That's 93%. Double click on the clip. Listen to what the guy is saying.
As you get to the rock and you look up at...
Got you. So I heard the rock. Let's go second one, which is 93% also.
That rock.
Got it.
Approaching the rock.
So there's multiple places where the guy says rock. Okay. So you can call it anything you want to, but you type in a word that it is understood by English and it should find it. And there are multiple languages for it. The English is my one. You can also select and add additional ones and download it. My time is running out. I just wanted to show you at least these two things. So interface looks a little bit different. The linking looks a little bit different. And this tool that I am really using a lot, especially if you're doing documentary and you're trying to find out when the guy said the word. So for example, let's say that he may say something sponsored. Let's see, does he say that? I don't necessarily know. There we go, sponsored. So he says,
I'm not in it for the sponsorships.
There we go. So it's not sponsored, but sponsorships, close enough.
The sponsorship is really cool. Because
okay, so next one. And you go down the percentage and it's less recognizable.
You're not in this for the sponsorships.
So there is multiple ways of doing that. I'm looking at the chat info, and the chat info says That's crazy. Good. I'm happy you like that. Well, it's not crazy. It's actually magic. So if you have the ultimate, that's in. It is working when the stuff is already in. I have tested it on Link. It did not work for us on Link. So the media has to be imported. So it's in the ecosystem and it should recognize it. And it does understand accents. And the percentage obviously is where when it goes below 80 or 70, then it's maybe instead of door, it says more, core, whatever. So it can confuse things. But my time is up and I would like to just save everything I have. You have information about our classes whenever you're ready to come back to us, guys. My time is up. Thank you for your attention.